welcome to another Let's Talk About Myths, baby. Today's mini myth focuses on a woman I briefly mentioned last week who had a little bit of say in what Medea was doing. Mini myth: Goddess Hecate, work thy will. Hecate. Last week we learned that it was she who taught Medea all her sorcery, all the darkness that she then used on the king of Iolcus and later Creon and his daughter, and even Medea's own 2 children. So, who is Hecate? Well, aside from being the goddess mentioned by former rat/witch Amy, in addition to Willow, in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she's also the goddess of witchcraft, magic, ghosts, and necromancy. Basically, she's the goddess of Halloween. She's one of the origins of the idea of witches, as far as we know them. And just to preface this, there's no real story-style myths associated with Hecate, but I think she's fascinating and an important figure. So what comes now is a mini myth where I just tell you all about this badass witch woman. Hecate, whose name means worker from afar, was born to the Titans Perses and Asteria. She was their only daughter, and from them she got her power over the heavens, the earth, and the sky. And this was not the norm for anyone to have that kind of power. Even Zeus wasn't god of the sea. Hecate spent her time wandering the earth holding 2 torches, one in each hand, and being followed by her animal familiars. She was more connected with the people of Earth and Earth itself than many of the more well-known ancient Greek deities. She was, of course, most closely connected with women. She did, after all, have a habit of teaching them to be badass via magic. To this day, Hecate is associated with Wicca and modern witchcraft. Like I said, Buffy. She is arguably the only ancient Greek goddess or god that is still worshipped today, which is pretty damn cool. But back to her animal familiars. The black she-dog that followed her, which is of course simply a female dog, but I suppose in ancient times that somehow made it different from just a dog. It's better than referring to her as a bitch, so I'll take it. Now this dog was actually the Trojan queen Hecuba. After the fall of Troy and the death of her husband Hector, Hecuba leapt into the sea. It was then that Hecate pulled her out and transformed her into a dog. A polecat was another of Hecate's familiars, and no, I don't know what a polecat is. I'm imagining it is just a cat. Anyway, this cat was either a witch named Gale, who was transformed by Hecate as punishment, or, more interestingly, Galantheus. Galantheus was the midwife to Alcmene, the mother of Heracles, or Hercules as he's better known. Galantheus was tricked by Hera and Eileithyia, the goddess of labor and childbirth. She was not supposed to let Heracles be born, but she saw Eileithyia and called out that the babies were there. Frankly, I don't understand how this was bad or why it was a required punishment. It was, almost certainly something to do with the fact that Zeus was Heracles' father and Hera was not psyched that she was about to have yet another child to deal with that was a result of her husband just being an awful guy. But either way, this was apparently punishment enough that Eileithyia or Hera, one of them, transformed Galantheus into the cat, and Hecate took pity on her and let her be her familiar. I suppose if you're going to be transformed into a cat, you might as well follow around a badass witch afterwards. I'm thinking a little more badass than the ever-magical Hocus Pocus witches, just a little tougher, a little more edgy. Hecate is sometimes represented in 3s, as if she is at once one woman and also 3. Even sometimes just 3 heads. I can't think of any other goddesses that's represented in this way, and I think it's pretty cool that on top of being an obvious representation of her sorcery and general magic skills that she was unique in this additional way. As goddess of magic, I'm going to refer to Hecate as Queen Witch, because I think that's appropriate. She was closely connected with plants and botany in general, mostly in the ways that plants can be transformed into poisons and potions and even psychoactives. She used things like aconite and belladonna, dittany, and mandrake. It is through Hecate that Medea learned her poisonous ways. Hecate is the between. She was associated with borders and city walls and doorways and crossroads, the realms outside or beyond that of the living. Dare I say, the upside down? I'm pandering now. Happy Stranger Things Day! Hecate was good and bad. She was unpredictable. At once, she was both the goddess who protected spaces like what I've just mentioned. She could stand guard and protect a person as they walk through those liminal spaces. But at the same time, she was also so associated with darkness that she would sometimes refuse to deny demons entry. She might even welcome them with open arms. In the ancient world, people often kept statues or representations of her in their doorways. 3 masks, or a woman with 3 faces. You know Janus, the statues of the man with 2 faces, one on the front and one on the back? Hecate is similar, but 3 faces all around the same head, so basically you can see everywhere all the time. I think it took a particular type of woman to want Hecate's help, and I think we learned about that woman pretty in-depthly in the last episode. Even the mythology book I'm reading to research this, one of the most famous and well-respected there is, The Gods of the Greeks by C. Karenyi, says, quote, "To describe how and with what purposes Hecate was invoked by women would take us into the field of witchcraft, and I propose to confine myself as closely as possible to mythology." And that's how he ends the section on Hecate, which I don't find particularly helpful, even if it is particularly quotable. There are even myths that say that Hecate is the mother of Scylla, one of ancient Greece's most famous monster women, of which there are many. And I'll visit that, but in next week's full episode, which will be a monster mash of ancient Greek proportions. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening. You're all the best. Enjoy your weekend, and I hope it's full of horror movies and Stranger Things, as my own promises to be. I'm Liv, and I love this shit.